children. I have something for you to play with.
The Five Nights at Freddy's movie was a major hit, doing a great job adapting the source material's characters, as well as adding in some new faces. But how do these characters get along? Welcome to Wicked Binge. These are the relationships in the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, healthy to toxic. As usual, we're gonna kick things off with the healthy relationships, and we're gonna give the gold medal of healthiness to the most iconic relationship, of course being all of the animatronics' relationship with each other. Never underestimate the power of shared trauma when it comes to bonding. When you're a kid who is brutally murdered by a complete sicko and your only company consists of the other kids who were also brutally murdered by said sicko, you don't exactly get much of a choice in terms of your buddies. So naturally, you all possess animatronics and put on the occasional haunted music show, and maybe treat yourself to a killing spree here or there. They might not be the best people, but Freddy Fazbear and his buddies are tortured souls who work well together and seem to genuinely care for one another. For all their faults, there's nothing indicative of any sort of strife or even conflict between the gang, giving them a clear shot at our top spot. The runner-up is the first familial relationship in our list, siblings Mike and Abby Schmidt. Mike and his younger sister Abby might not seem too tight-knit at first. Honestly, I think a lot of people thought he was her dad at first, but knowing that they're siblings actually makes Mike's stepping up even more impressive. He takes on whatever crappy job he can get for the sake of providing for Abby, and keeping her from having to live with her Aunt Jane, who neither of them like.
She's mean and she smells like cigarettes.
There are some bumps in the road, sure. Abby can cause a bit of trouble for Mike here and there, and Mike has a hard time really connecting with her until the end of the movie. But things are looking up in the end, so they still come out close to the top as far as a healthy relationship is concerned. And honestly, those are really the only fully healthy relationships to speak of in this movie. So next, let's talk about the rocky relationships. First up in this category, we have Mike and Maxine, Abby's babysitter. These two seem to be pretty close friends given Max's willingness to babysit Abby for no charge, knowing Mike's financial woes, and also given that Mike does offer to pay her anyway. Unfortunately, the friendship has to lose some points for the fact that Max is secretly gathering information against Mike at the commission of Jane. She doesn't ultimately find any, nor does she seem overly keen on trying any harder to do it, but that kind of deception is really telling of some character flaws she needs to work on before anyone buys her that ring that she really wants. Well, not that she can work on them now. R.I.P. Next is a much more blatantly questionable friendship, that between Abby Schmidt and the animatronics. You'd think an attempt of murder would cement their spot in the outright toxic area, but not only were Golden Freddy and the gang put up to it by their boss, they weren't even maliciously trying to hurt Abby. They only wanted her to join them in body and spirit by getting her to possess one of the currently empty robots, without Springtrap around to influence them, for now at least. Maybe these two can keep building a solid friendship. They play together like innocent children, with Abby being forgiving and understanding of their tragic situation. There's always going to be an air of caution here though, hence their middle-of-the-road placement. Real quickly, we have to give a mention to the relationship between Aunt Jane and her lawyer, Doug. Doug is a simple lawyer just trying to do his job with integrity. More of a Howard Hamlin than a Saul Goodman, if you will. Like any reasonable man, he wants nothing to do with Jane's discussions of paying Maxine and Jeff to do her dirty work. Being her lawyer, you'd think she might not even want him here, but Jane being Jane, she forces him to stick around anyway, and hardly even lets him get a word in between all of her own ramblings. Word of advice, Doug, sometimes the money's just not worth it. You could definitely make a case for this next one being the most complex relationship on our list, Mike Schmidt and Vanessa Afton. Honestly, out of all the relationships in this category, these two probably have the least genuine strife between them. They're able to be cordial on the surface, and despite Vanessa being a bit rude, she does actually offer some decent help to Mike in his work, and inadvertently tries to keep him from getting himself in danger.
Just do your job and you'll be fine.
That said, she also threatens to shoot him if he brings Abby back to the pizzeria, and ends up keeping pertinent information from him until it's almost too late. You would think instead of just acting rude and cold to get him to quit his job, or to interpret it more bluntly, to literally threaten to kill him, she could just, tell him directly about the serial killer living there. It's a little too early to judge too harshly though, and she did ultimately take a near-fatal stab wound to take William down and protect him and Abby.
I won't let you hurt her too.
So we'll give her some leeway. Oh yeah, also, she throws his sleeping pills into a lake. Not cool, Vanessa. Healthcare is not cheap here. With our rocky section wrapped up, we now enter the toxic relationships. And the bronze medal of toxicity goes to the relationship between Golden Freddy and Mike. Really, this entry could extend to all of the animatronics, but Golden Freddy is the one who interacts the most with Mike. First of all, they're keeping him from the information of where his long-lost brother is, which is absolutely wild considering that Garrett's kidnapper and killer is the same as theirs. But we can chalk that up to Afton's manipulation, hence why they aren't any lower. Oh yeah, speaking of manipulation, Golden Freddy tries to convince Mike to give Abby over to the gang in exchange for returning his brother Garrett to him.
You want to save Garrett, that's why you're really here.
Again, they aren't the ones fully pulling the strings here, but that's still pretty screwed up even for a kid. Our runner-up of toxicity goes to the relationship between Aunt Jane, Mike, and Abby. Let's just say that there are some good reasons why neither Jane's niece nor her nephew are very fond of her. Mike sees through her deception with minimal effort, calling her out immediately for not actually caring about Abby, at least not as much as she lets on.
All she wants is the monthly check from the state.
It's heavily suggested that she wants custody of Abby primarily for the tax breaks it will provide for her. But even if that's not true, the best case scenario here is that she doesn't believe in Mike's ability to be a stable provider for Abby. And for all his shortcomings, the guy really is trying his best. On Abby's end of the spectrum, she just doesn't like Jane. And Jane doesn't really help this. While she seems relatively cordial with Abby, she never really makes much of an effort to bond with her. We're a bit more privy to believe Mike's accusation of her deception, but even then, we still can't give this absolute disaster of a family the bottom spot. The gold medal of toxicity has to go to the relationship between William Afton and, well, basically everyone else. Let's face it, when you're a man as unapologetically depraved as William Afton, there's no sense splitting your relationships into different categories of toxicity. That's not going to stop us from talking about all of the relevant ones though. First off, the kids, aka the animatronics. I don't think we really need to go into too much detail on why killing 6 children, at minimum mind you, automatically qualifies your relationship with them as toxic.
You are wretched, rotten little beast!
But if for some reason you're still not sure of your position, you know how the kids are possessing the animatronics? Well, it's not just their spirits. Afton not only killed these kids, but he stuffed their lifeless bodies into his children's pizza chain mascots' animatronics bodies. He also manipulates and emotionally abuses them to do his bidding and take even more lives. And it gets worse. This man has a daughter, Vanessa Afton to be exact. And as we saw in the movie's final act, he's not even remotely hesitant to stab her if she gets in his way. He doesn't seem to feel any remorse for it, and while it's a bit early to say given how little screen time he has in this first movie, there doesn't seem to really be any kind of affection between the two. Then there's Mike, and while he may not have as much direct personal history with William Afton, their connection is still worth mentioning. Afton not only put him through the trauma of seeing his little brother kidnapped at a young age and subsequently murdered him, but the moment he recognized his name, he sent him to work as a security guard at his fellow victim's graveyard, essentially trying to silence him without doing it directly. The only good thing to say about him is that he's a genius, but no amount of brains can make up for so little heart, and his lack of any love therein cements his relationship's place at the bottom of our list.